Where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. God has hidden unlimited treasures in His Word. Every time we open it, we can discover a new treasure, or admire an old one. What will we find today? Let's dig in. Here's Carla Early with Treasure Hunt in the Word.
Have you ever been listening to a sermon and God convicts you with one statement, and then you don't hear the rest of the sermon because God's working on your heart about that one thing? Happens to me all the time. I almost feel like I should apologize to my pastor. After all, he's probably worked on the sermon for hours. Whatever the point of it was, I didn't get it. However, God knows what I need to hear. I'd like to share with you one of these moments. Recently, the pastor preached on Acts 16, 25 through 34. I only heard Acts 16:25. Paul and Silas had cast out a demon from a slave girl. This angered her owners because she could no longer make money with her fortune telling. So they started a riot, which ended up with Paul and Silas beaten and thrown into jail for the night with their feet in stocks, which I've heard is most uncomfortable in and of itself. But since they'd been beaten with rods, they were most likely in a lot of pain and in a dirty prison cell in a very bleak situation, unsure of what would be happening to them in the morning. I could tell you what I'd probably be doing in this situation. My natural inclination would be crying out to God, "Help me, get me out of this." Wallowing in pain and self-pity, all my fellow prisoners would have heard from me was sobbing. But not Paul and Silas. In the middle of these horrible circumstances, look what they did. About midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns to God, and the prisoners were listening to them. At that point in the sermon, the Lord stopped up my listening ears and opened my listening heart. He said, "Carla, when you put me first, you don't think about yourself when you have painful, awful circumstances. You praise me. When you can do that, it opens up room for me to work because other people are watching and listening to you, just as the prisoners listened to Paul and Silas that night. They probably had no idea why the two of them had been arrested. They probably didn't even care. But Paul and Silas's reaction to these adverse circumstances got their attention, and they listened. If you want people to listen to the gospel, the message I have given you to tell, you've got to praise me no matter what. Are you willing to do that? Now I knew the rest of the story here. In verse 26, an earthquake opened all the jail doors and unfastened all the bonds and woke the jailer, who thought everyone had escaped. Knowing his punishment would be a humiliating death, he chose to take his own life. Paul stopped him and shared the gospel with him. The jailer and his whole family were saved and baptized that very night. How many of the prisoners also heard the gospel and believed that night? They'd been listening to Paul and Silas's prayers and songs. No doubt they listened to them share the gospel with the jailer also. And all this started with their conscious decision to praise. As Paul commanded in Philippians, rejoice in the Lord always. And again, I say rejoice. Yes, even when you're in pain, falsely accused, in a cold jail cell, physically suffering, rejoice. Praise God. Who knows what He'll do with that? And do me a favor, if you hear me complaining, remind me to praise.
As always, we'd love to hear from you. If you'd like to share a treasure, support this ministry, or get Carla to speak at an event, please contact us at treasurehuntintheword@gmail.com. You can listen to other episodes on our website, which you can find in the description below. Thanks for listening, and have a great day.